the influence of global tech companies is growing across the political, social, and economic realms. While the actions of big tech shape our information ecosystems, transparency is often lacking, including on how the platform's priorities and interests shape algorithms. Disinformation represents an imminent threat to fundamental freedoms. It can induce societal polarization, distrust, and instability. Fighting disinformation requires measures that ensure media and information freedom, support literacy, and enforce transparency and accountability from online platforms. At the same time, the fight against disinformation must protect freedom of expression. How can we ensure a transparent and responsible information ecosystem with an informed public conversation, protection of human rights, free editorial media, and resilient citizenries? As big tech assumes an even greater role, are we as citizens and as nations losing the information space? Please welcome to the stage the moderator, Natalie Becker-Arkovic.
Hello, everybody, and welcome. And to some of you, welcome back. It's lovely to see you here again to the high-level session, Losing the Information Space. Losing the information space? Ensuring human rights and resilient societies in the age of big tech. In this session, presented by the IGF2025 proud host country, Norway. I'm Natalie Becker-Arkovic, your moderator. Also, a huge welcome and welcome back to our online global audience who are watching from all corners of the world. Now, in this session, societies, as we see, enjoy immense benefits from their participation on platforms. But there are also threats as ethics, safety, and negative social impacts may be neglected for leverage in the global AI space or the global AI race. Now, disinformation represents an imminent threat to fundamental freedoms. It can induce polarization in society, distrust, and instability, as we have seen. So fighting disinformation really requires measures to ensure media and information freedom and literacy and transparency and accountability on the part of the online platforms to really mitigate these risks of potential misuse of platform power. So at the same time, the fight against disinformation must protect freedom and expression. And this requires a balancing act, a really delicate balancing act, if we talk about it, between security and fundamental freedoms. So as big tech assumes an even greater role in our communication and in our communication infrastructures, are we as citizens and as nations losing the information space? That is a question that has been asked here today, and hopefully our esteemed speakers and panelists will be able to answer that in part. You're also welcome to continue these conversations and try and connect with people and try and find answers and ways of working collaboratively together to create and maintain that delicate balance that we spoke about. How can we ensure a transparent and responsible information ecosystem with an informed public conversation, a protection of human rights, free editorial media, as well as resilient citizenries? Those are the questions we hope you'll be keeping in your mind as we dive into these panel discussions and hear from our speakers. So this high-level Leaders Track session will really discuss the ethical and governance challenges posed by platform power. Panelists will unpack how user attention capture leaves open risk for mis- and disinformation campaigns and explore the opacity of algorithmic priorities in the global AI race, as we mentioned. And also, we will see if we can debate some strategies to bolster transparency and accountability in this space. So I'm going to be introducing our speakers, and they're going to come on stage, and we're going to get into the conversation. Are you ready? Are you ready? Fantastic. That's great to hear. So first, we have Ms. Lubna Jaffrey, Minister of Culture and Equality in Norway. We have Lisa Pakosta, Minister of Justice and Digital Affairs in Estonia. We have Mr. Tibud Bruton, Secretary General for Reporters Without Borders. We have Ms. Lisa Hayes, Head of Safety for Public Policy and Senior Counsel for the Americas and TikTok. Mr. Bjorn Berger, Deputy Secretary General of the Council of Europe. And we have Monsignor Lucio Adrian Ruiz, the Secretary for the Dicastery of Communication in the Holy See. Please give us, or join me in giving them a warm round of applause as they join us on stage. Thank you. Yes, let's welcome them on stage with some more warm applause, ladies and gentlemen. We're very privileged and blessed here to have our representatives proudly from Norway and from all parts of the world who have all flown in to be here with us today and to have these very important conversations that will carry forward the work. So a warm welcome to you, our panelists, and thank you so much for joining us. Now I would like to invite opening remarks by Minister Jaffrey, Norwegian Minister of Culture and Equality. Minister, the stage is yours.
Excellencies, colleagues, experts, distinguished guests, I am delighted to be here on the first of 5 days of what I am sure will be constructive and intriguing talks about how we can work together to ensure an open, safe and free internet. Some of these talks arise from great challenges. 7 months ago, the results of the first round of the Romanian presidential election were annulled amid allegations of widespread influence operations and social media disinformation. This incident is not isolated. Manipulation on online platforms has become a well-known challenge to countries around the globe. According to reports from the Norwegian Defence Research Establishment, similar tactics have been used in attempts to mislead citizens in countries such as the United States, France, Georgia, and South Korea, just to name a few. The advancement of generative AI has only intensified this challenge. Today, disinformation can be produced and spread at an unprecedented scale and sophistication. AI-generated content that mimic real people are now widely accessible. These manipulative efforts are often subtle and can be deeply harmful. Propaganda and false narratives can spread like wildfire across social media, undermining trust in our fellow citizens, institutions, and the very fabric of our societies. The goals behind such campaigns are clear: to sway elections, erode solidarity, disrupt public discourse, and create instability. The consequences are not abstract. Disinformation can inflict real democratic, physical, and economic harm. While it is not new that actors who aim to destabilize societies and manipulate individuals use information as a weapon, information is also our strongest defense. Independent news media offers reliable sources to information, and disinformation thrives when there is a lack of an independent and diverse media landscape. However, news media's abilities to perform their function as watchdogs and providers of reliable information are challenged by big tech platforms. Journalistic content is an important part of what the platforms offer, but they are unwilling to share data, and the terms for media companies are still not satisfactory. Through transparency, knowledge, and free expressions, we need to ensure that the truth is easily available to those who look. When this is properly ensured, it is a recipe for success. In other words, the solution is not to prohibit expressions or untruths. The fight against disinformation needs to save, not suppress, freedom of expression. We must also ensure that inequality and discrimination is not transferred to or even amplified by the technologies we rely on. To ensure human rights and proper resilience across citizenries, the age of big tech, we must safeguard equality and inclusion. As the Norwegian government has stressed in our newly published national strategy to strengthen the resilience against disinformation, a robust media system, high levels of trust, and high levels of media literacy and source awareness are important tools. Studies have found these factors to be of a major significance in the terms of how vulnerable a country is to disinformation. The strategy also emphasizes that we will hold big tech companies accountable and demand that they accept that their central role in our information space bring great obligations. Addressing this crisis requires more than national action. It demands global cooperation and strong regulations to hold tech companies accountable. But regulation alone is not enough. We need a united front, civil society, industry, academia, politicians and decision makers, working together to combat disinformation while safeguarding freedom of expression. Only through collective effort can we build resilience, societies that protect human rights, foster innovation, and preserve the integrity of our democracies. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Minister Jaffrey, for delivering those opening remarks. And we are looking forward to having a meaningful conversation. Multi-stakeholder approach to internet governance is vitally important, as we've said before. And the context within which these conversations, challenging, difficult conversations where we really are looking for ways forward and solutions to take the work forward in a good way are vitally important. So we thank all of you for being here today and all the representatives representing the various voices of this of the engagement. So our first question is, digital platforms have transformed how information is accessed and shared. What are some of the broader societal impacts you've observed from data-driven and engagement-oriented systems, and how can public interest governance address these dynamics? I'm going to ask that question only one more time because I know you only have 3 minutes each to answer. So, Ms. Lisa Lilly-Pacosta, over to you.
Thank you so much, and it is really an honor to be here, and thank you for these opening words. I fully agree what you said, and I also think that if we could do everything that you said, that would be great. So the issue we are actually talking here is how to fulfill these very good perspectives we have as normal human beings in the era of democracy that we want to protect and the freedom of speech that we want to protect, while having new technological opportunities for also the bad guys available. But also not only the technological variety is out there, but also we can see that nothing from the physical life has also changed. So let us remember that also the false information before elections was widely spread in Pompeii, which was found from the archaeological excavations, and it was 79 year Anno Domini. So it is nothing new in the way we are dealing with, but we are dealing with this in the era of huge information revolution. So what has changed? I come from Estonia, which is a fully digitalized country where people have high trust to digital services, digital government, but we are also a neighboring country to Russia. And what we see, what has changed, is that we see constant hybrid attacks, so that information wars are spread on many more platforms than it has happened so far. And you very well took out the example from Romania, where the elections actually were attacked by Russia. So this is something that we clearly see on just new technological levels. The second thing is that what has changed is the education. So normally we have been used that we teach the children, they learn to read books and newspapers, and we have some time with the children to discuss these issues. Now we are in a totally different situation, And what we believe in Estonia is that we have to teach the children to be good users, clever users of the information that is out there and around there.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Lisa Lilly. We want to, Lisa Lee, we want to also perhaps continue a little bit on that point in our next question as well. So thank you so much for your contribution. Then Mr. Thijbart Bruyten, Secretary General, Reporters Without Borders. What is your response to that question?
So, coming from a movement that historically and internationally defends journalism, I think we need to acknowledge the progress made in collecting and spreading information via these new tech platforms that have been built. I mean, that's the obvious thing that we may forget about in the current time of the history of tech companies today, because there is so much dissatisfaction and so much talk about disinformation that maybe we tend to forget that in order to collect, to disseminate news, there has been huge opportunities, and the news media have seized it to some extent. But that being said, we also see the risk, because today the economy of the media, the news media, has been deeply weakened by the tech platforms. We have also seen a decline in the trust of the public. We've seen political movement weaponizing social media to their benefit. And also we've seen tech companies not endorsing their democratic role. So I think the main statement I'd like to make is like there are three things that we need to rethink. First of all, democracy shall win. I mean, I think nobody believes that anymore. We know that we need to protect democracies, that it's a long-standing, continuous, daily effort. The truth will not prevail if we do not protect our information space. And third, it's a fantasy to believe that the digital space is a private space run by tech companies. We have delegated it to them. It's something that's owned by the public to some extent. It's a public utility, and we need to claim it. We need to restore democratic guarantees in the digital space. That's what RSF believes in, and what the Forum on Information and Democracy, which is a sister entity of RSF, believes in. And I'm also the president of the forum. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Thijbart. And Mr. Bjorn Berger, what is your response to that in your 3-minute answer? Please.
Oh, thank you very much. And first of all, a very good afternoon to all of you. And of course, some of the more concerning impact is, of course, related to what has already been mentioned by other speakers, the spread of misinformation, disinformation, hate speech, and so forth, which really aims very deliberately to manipulate public opinion and to destabilize even societies, and certainly also can have an impact where it actually undermines democratic processes. And the minister also referred to some of the recent examples we have from elections. And then you really go to the core of a democracy. And this type of disinformation campaigns, this type of manipulation we have seen in several elections over the years. So it's a huge problem. And so the question is then next, what are we going to do to combat disinformation? I come from the Council of Europe. Of course, we focus very much also on standard setting, legal approach to many of these issues. And we have issued last year, as a matter of fact, a guidance note to all our 46 member states, all of Europe. And here we give some very concrete advice how to go forward. It's related to fact-checking and platform design, and also user empowerment. We also have to deal with the more criminal aspects of this, the Cybercrime Convention, which over 70 countries, not only in Europe, but globally has joined. And they have activities now in over 130 countries. So I think this is also an important part of the work we do in this regard. But more concretely, how to address this, there's a number of issues I can mention. We will maybe come back to it also, I don't know with the time, but Of course, it's related to media literacy, and this is certainly not done overnight. I mean, here we need to have a long-term perspective, 5, 10 years, 15 years. It's related to fact-checking, as I already said. But there we are always too late. It's already had an impact, but still it's crucial. And then it's also issues related to how we can suspend or withdraw content. But again, by who? Yes, social media themselves, platforms have a role to play, but we have also seen a trend where this is getting more difficult and less a priority for some of them. So, and it's also about legislation, as I said. Of course, the EU Digital Service Act is very useful, but it's also then an issue of enforcement and implementation. So there are other issues as well, but to start with, we really need to go deeper. We need to know how systems are used or misused, and how the algorithms really, how they are behavior of it, and also how they are used in this context. So I don't know if I'm close to 3 minutes or I should go on.
Thank you so much. We'll come back to that in the next question. Perhaps we'll have a little time to round off. But now I'd like to, so thank you for your contribution. Now I'd like to go over to Monsignor Lucio Adrian Ruiz. Monsignor Ruiz, how would you answer that question?
Well, I think that we need to understand that the digital culture touches many areas of the human life, but the deepest one comes from the field of the anthropology and also ethics. Because the digital culture touches the relationship between the persons, also the perception of the reality, the time, and also the way where we find answer to the existential questions. That is an approach to the reality that is really different in our culture. It means that also the ethical things are different, because if we see the reality in a different way, we act in a different way. Yeah. It means that everything that is digital is not just an instrument that conform and realize a new culture. That is really important, because it's used to us to think that the technology is neutral, and it's not. Because all technology born with an intention, and after we can apply another intention with the user use the technology. It's used to us to say the technology is neutral, we can use to good or to bad, but it's not. It's born with an intention. Means that it's necessary to act well the formation, the legislation, and the research. Also in the field of the anthropological fields, and also in ethical fields.
Thank you so much for that input. Thank you, Monsignor Ruiz. And Minister Jaffrey, would you like to respond to that question?
Yeah, sure. I hope you're also going to ask TikTok about this, because we are all talking about the big tech platforms, and TikTok is present here. So first of all, I think it is important to acknowledge that the digital platform, in a sense, is a part of a democratization, because it gives and it allows a lot of us to speak what we want to say, and express what we want to say. But the problem is that there is also a lot of people that are silenced and not even heard. That is also the problem. And we know also that these platforms, the algorithms, they make us live in certain universes. So I'm a part of one universe, my neighbor is part of another universe, and we don't meet because we are part of echo chambers that enable the things we want to enable and the things we want to mean. So that is also a problem, because the common ground is lost in a sense when you also use a lot of time on the digital platforms. And we also know that digital platforms, have had incidents where they have spread hate, radicalization. That is a problem. So I think what we need, and the Norwegian government's response to this, is that we need to support the media, for instance. This is important, and I know a lot of countries think this is very strange that the Norwegian government support editorial-led media, but this is one of our main responses against disinformation, because we need to have media literacy. We need young people to understand that social media can be positive, but it can also be negative. And you can't use social media to, know all the facts every time. You need editorial-led media, and that is one of our strongest responses in the strategy we have launched last week.
Thank you so much, Lubna. And of course, thank you, including TikTok in this conversation, which is very important. It's not an easy space to be in. We thank you for showing up in good faith and for being part of this conversation where all the voices need to be present in order to take this forward. So thank you, Lubna. And Lisa, the next question directed at you first. Emerging technologies are impacting both the spread and efficacy of mis and disinformation. So what is their potential for identifying and mitigating mis and disinformation, and how can their adoption be scaled responsibly? So each speaker has 4 minutes to answer this question. Lisa, please go ahead.
Thank you so much for having me here today and for TikTok being part of this really, really important conversation. I'm not sure that's a 4-minute question, to be fair. I think it is more like a 4-day question, or at a minimum a 4-hour question. So I hope that this is just the beginning of the conversation for those of us who are here this week, because I'm only going to be able to scratch the surface, but I'll give it a shot. There must be something in a name, because I do want to echo something that Lisa nodded at, the other Lisa, in her opening comments. This is not new. I mean, some of the issues we are facing in the digital space now are new platforms, but every time we've had a major technological leap forward, we have had problems of misinformation and disinformation. We started with the printing press, and we wound up with tabloids at the supermarket telling you that, the celebrity is having alien babies. And we started with radio, and we wound up with shock jocks. We started with commercial broadcast television, and we wound up with cable stations sort of on the edge. As a society globally, we have engaged in this digital literacy. We have figured out how to spot truth from lies, and we've learned how to digest all of this information. I'm not generally seen as an optimist, but I am a realist. We will come to grasp with everything that is happening with the new emerging technologies, and I think that we will, as societies, benefit from them more than we're harmed by them. I also want to nod at the role that mainstream journalism has brought to technologies. I know on TikTok, for example, if you want to learn from the Wall Street Journal or the Washington Post or the BBC or the Guardian, all of those news entities do have verified accounts, and they put out very entertaining information that is reaching a whole audience and community that they would not otherwise be able to reach. Dare I say it, even the United Nations has a verified TikTok account and is using that account to push out information to 1 billion people around the world who otherwise might not be looking for that information. So that's the sort of positive sense of what we are doing. But beyond providing authoritative information, emerging technologies need to prioritize safety by design. We need to prioritize security by design. At TikTok, our policies prohibit harmful misinformation regardless of the poster's intent, and we remove accounts that repeatedly post this type of information. To go to your question, we do detect this misinformation using automated technology, user reports, proactive intelligence gatherings from experts, as well as our fact-checking partners. Technology is used to help us do this work at scale, to help us do this work rapidly even, so that we can catch problems before they begin. Currently, 80% of the content that we remove from our platform is identified through automation and technology. And as videos gain in popularity and start to gain more views, they go through additional rounds of content review to make sure that they comply with our platform guidelines. When we pair technology with human moderation, we have found that we are able to remove violative content 98% of the time proactively before it's reported to us as a platform. And we would not be able to do that without some of these new forms of content moderation. AI is enabling us to identify harmful misinformation, to segregate it as part of a video, and to send it to human review, to send it to fact checkers for independent assessment. And so those are some of the benefits of the things that we are able to do with automation right now. And as more creators explore AIGC, it is imperative that companies continue exploring new ways, new methods of advancing safety. And I know I'm at my 4 minutes because there's a large clock right in front of me, but we'll continue this conversation.
Thank you so much, Lisa, for that input, and we're looking forward to the responses also from our panel. Mr. Bjornberger, over to you. How would you answer that question in your 4 minutes?
Yeah, in terms of meeting then the challenges of disinformation and misinformation, yeah. I started really focusing a little on it already, but this is such a fundamental issue, I mean, for Europe, for the world, and what is important that we also have a clear strategy. And some of the elements in such a strategy is, of course, related to media literacy, as I said, also the issue of fact-checking, and also how we can ensure the suspension or the withdrawal of certain content. And also there is a legislative part to this with certain need for regulations in this area. Already the EU Digital Services Act is of course very useful, but here, as I said, there is also a question of how we can help enforce it even better and secure its implementation. And maybe also there's time, you know, developments go so quickly here. Maybe there's time also to reflect a little on what are the lessons learned so far when it comes to this area of legislation and regulations. So we need really to go into also how the systems are actually used and misused, and maybe we also need to understand human behavior better, particularly young people. And here we need actually more research. It seems today that young people go elsewhere, and today influencers have a huge impact. And there was a survey in the United States of young people, and 40% of them said that they go to influencers. I don't know the situation here in Norway or in other European countries, and that's why I call for more research and evidence on this, and also a certain focus on youth and young people in regard to this. And also, could we even be more creative? I mean, we talk about the negative sides of this. How can we promote the reliable, positive information, news information, to combat, in a way, lies and disinformation? And how can that be lifted up? I know we have the Secretary General here of the Reporters Without Borders. They have taken a very important initiative, I think, which is called Journalism Trust Initiative. And this is a method of how we can have a system of giving you and me trustworthy and more reliable information. And I think this is a good way of going. And could we also oblige the social media platforms to do more of this? To focus also on reliable, positive news to help people, actually. We also had a big hackathon in Strasbourg where we had young people from all over Europe, and we challenged them on this issue about disinformation and what were their views. How will they tackle this? And we also had some experts there, and one of the concrete examples and recommendations they made was, do we need maybe also a new convention perhaps on disinformation and foreign influence that can bind all governments and bring all governments together? That was one of the issues.
Thank you.
And also the Convention on the Right to Information is essential today, I think, and this is related to what I already said. So there are many other ideas around this, but I think this is such a fundamental issue, and we need a multi-stakeholder approach to this. It's not enough that government sits and discuss this among themselves. We need to have all the users, the academics, the young people, the researchers, the main providers themselves, the main actors themselves.
Thank you so much for lifting that up again. The multi-stakeholder approach, of course, a core tenet to this conversation. Thank you so much, Birger, and for lifting up also the work that Reporters Without Borders is doing. We're going to also come back to you in our next question, Thibaut. But to round off this question, how would you respond, Minister Jaffrey, in 3 minutes? Sorry.
It's okay. So from a policy perspective, I think scaling the adoption of emerging technologies responsibly is crucial. So first of all, it's important that emerging technologies do not reproduce or even strengthen inequality and discrimination. We have, unfortunately, seen examples of technologies that maintain biases and discrimination, such as facial recognition systems that cannot detect people of color, or algorithms that reproduce gender biases. So the tech companies need to be very careful of the many ways they can ingrain deep-seated prejudice in society into their technologies. This is also part of combating disinformation. A part of strengthening resilience to disinformation campaign is an inclusive and a just society. This facilitates trust, stability, and the abilities of citizens to take part in an open and informed public discourse. It's also crucial that technologies do not undermine human rights, such as the freedom of speech, when they aim to mitigate disinformation.
Thank you so much for that input, and thank you for answering that question on our panelists. As we move on to the third question, for which we also have 4 minutes each to answer, timekeeping. However, these are such big questions. We truly appreciate the input that you're managing to summarize in these pockets of meaningful conversation. And also, Minister Jaffrey, thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate your time. We understand that you have more obligations to take care of today, so thank you for joining us, and a big warm round of applause for Minister Jaffrey. Thank you. Lisa Lee, the third question, we'll start with you. There are increasing calls for transparency in algorithmic systems. In your view, what constitutes meaningful transparency? What kinds of transparency practices, technical, operational, or communicative, can help to build public trust?
Thank you. Estonia stands for full transparency, and this is because, as said before, Estonia is a fully digital state. All our government services are digital, and people give their data to government for interoperability. This means we need a huge amount of trust from our citizens to make it fully operational. And we have guaranteed this through the full transparency. People can check from their mobile phones who has checked their data. You can go to the internet, and you have full picture of who has taken a look on your data, and you can ask why this person had this look on my data. And if he or she didn't have any legal grounds, one gets punished. So everything is fully transparent. Even we have e-voting, and even the voting system is fully open and transparent. So the transparency is the absolutely needed for the trust, but also for whatever controls there might be needed. There's not only from the government side control, but also the society itself. So we definitely stand for full transparency also by the media companies, because what you very rightly said, this is a public space, and it has to be fully transparent. This is the only tool with which we can guarantee that there is no way for discrimination or other bad things, and also misinformation. Of course, it's much more tricky if we are thinking of machine learning and things like this. So, but again, we have to find ways how also this is fully transparent to everybody. And all the arguments against it, like there are business purposes, etc., we wouldn't agree. So we have a real experience how the full transparency helps for trust.
Thank you so much for your response to that. I'm going to go over to Monsignor Ruiz to answer the question, the same question, increasing calls for transparency in algorithmic systems. What kind of transparency practices, technical, operational, or communicative, do you think can help to build public trust? Please go ahead.
Well, accessibility to code, sources, system architectures is the first answer, because it is knowing what it does and how it does. But we need also to know the planning, the implications, consequences, interrelationships, and also the vision of the future. It's necessary because this aspect can clarify the why and the how of these technologies. We cannot have a partial view of the present. We need to know the genesis and development in order to evaluate the trust of the systems. Precisely because a system acts in a systemic way, interrelated way, it is necessary to know the other actors that make it up. The presentation of the system must be accompanied by the ability to understand it, interpret it, which require knowledge and in the same dimension as the person that produced it, for equality, to understand the language. But there is another aspect, that of the possibility of moderation. The moderation must involve the participation of the government in a hand, and in the other hand, all institutions that represent the collective, the society, and have the appropriate authority to do it. The development of the system that shape the society and also the culture, as I said before, cannot be autonomous business model and activities, because the whole society, culture, and also the present, the future, and also the design of the humanity are a res publica, that means society for all, that need to active contribution of those who receive the services.
Thank you, Monsignor, for your contribution. We truly appreciate that. And then with that same question, I would like to hand the word to you, Mr. Thibaut-Brutin. What would be your response?
Well, I think we have to acknowledge where we are. And it's obvious that today, disinformation is not like a downside of tech companies. In our perspective, there is a massive disruption of the way the public conversation is happening. So there is disinformation, and anybody can actually put what it wants in disinformation. These are like words that we need to better define. What we see are lies, propaganda being spread intentionally by actors with the complicity either willingly or unwillingly of some of the tech companies. I'm just giving you an example. For example, between Christmas and New Year's Eve, I was on holidays and I received a video where I was presented. It looked like a very legitimate legacy media video spreading on TikTok, which explained that I had committed suicide. I had not. I was alive. I'm still alive. But this was spreading on X. And how is that possible that after claiming that it was false, after giving my identity, providing all the information, this video is still on X? So that's why I think we need to revise the pact that is uniting these tech companies with the civil society and the governments. We owe transparency to the public. But I'm afraid I disagree with media literacy as being one of the main solutions. I mean, the choices need to be made up front. We need to have a systemic change within the way we relate to this digital space. And when talking about transparency, we need to be clear about the fact that it's not about chasing the bad. It's not about taking down propaganda, which can equate censorship to some extent. It's about also promoting the good, about rewarding journalism worthy of that name. Because what is a conversation worth if it's not based on facts? And media are not perfect. News media are not perfect. I'm never going to say that. But still, they are the closest attainable version of the truth. And we need to reward that by the algorithm. So that's why at RSF, we do champion a must-carry provision, which means that tech companies should onboard necessarily news content identified as such. But also they should go further. They should give due prominence, an increased visibility to news content that show a responsible and ethical use of journalism. And they need also to reward them financially by neighboring rights and appropriate moderation. If you go to Ukraine, for example, and you see the number of content that's taken down and that is labeled as propaganda or infringement of users' rights and terms of use, it's insane. It's not the journalism content that is not compliant with terms of use. It's the world. Yes, when you report about wars, you need to show bodies and you need to show like war scenes and so on. So we need to have a media exemption, a news media exemption that truly reflects what we need in a public conversation. And governments that are strong enough and good-willing enough to engage in that direction, I think they can only prepare for the future of a restored public conversation.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for your response to that. Lisa, over to you in the last 3 minutes remaining. Thank you.
Do I think transparency is important? Yes. Should I yield my time? No. First, I am incredibly sorry there was a video created of you, and I hope that we took it down in a more timely manner than X.
It's not on TikTok.
Oh, excellent.
X.
Okay, well, I have no comment about that one. So yes, as to transparency, I agree with Monsignor, though, that it can't just be transparency. It needs to be meaningful transparency that people understand. Algorithmic systems are not magic, they're math. But if you don't have a sufficient understanding of that math, you're not going to understand what our disclosures are. My 15-year-old daughter is somewhere in the audience here, and every time she downloads an app, I get a notification asking if she can download it. And I have to go read a 40-page privacy policy. I'm not sure that's really meaningful transparency. So what we've been trying to do at TikTok is figure out ways to communicate to everybody who uses our platform how the algorithm works. And so we tell people what the signals are that the algorithm relies on, and we tell them in plain English so that you don't need to be a mathematician. You can actually understand that if you're engaging with videos, if you're liking videos, if you're sharing videos, if you're commenting on videos, those are the signals that our system is going to use. And of course, it's more complicated, and we give a lot of examples in it. But that is step one of transparency, is to make sure that it is meaningful transparency about how the system works. For us, step two is reporting on that transparency. Are there fake videos created that were posted that should not have been posted? How long did it take for us to get them down? How many of them did we take down? How did we identify it, or did somebody else identify it? And all of that information we produce voluntarily on a quarterly basis, and we do it in a machine-readable format so that people who are researchers trying to study changes quarter over quarter can download that information and compare trends across the different graphs to help better inform public policy. And the third and final thing that I think is so important is that we want to make sure that we are giving people tools that allow them to have transparency about their experience. At TikTok, we give them content controls so that they can manage topics. They can use keyword filters. They can say they're not interested. They can refresh their algorithmic feed. These are all ways that people can control their For You feed and their own algorithmic experience on TikTok. And finally, we have touched on media literacy, but to the point of videos that put up false information, I think it's important that at TikTok we have prompts that discourage people from sharing content that may be unverified. We label content created with AIGC. And we try to put forward authoritative sources in resource centers, partnering with credible fact checkers to make sure that we are getting people searching for harmful health misinformation, access to accurate and reliable health information. And with that, once again, I have a time is up sign.
That's right, Lisa. We know we cut slightly into your time. There's anything you want to add in a minute or so before we go to the next question? Lisa?
For me, these are complex issues. They are tough issues, and the platforms are not a monolith. I don't know, as we're designing systems, that we're able to do much without a lot more research and a lot more tools. And so we are here and we are committed to partnering with everybody in this room and to having those conversations, for getting constructive feedback, for hearing suggestions on how to improve, and working to implement those. And I'm really excited to continue that conversation.
Thank you so much for that. Bjorn, we'll come back to you, and we're hopefully going to have time for everybody to give a short closing comment, but we're going to go to the next question, and then you are able to also respond. I just wanted to give Lisa a fair amount of time that everybody else also on the panel had, and try and be a good timekeeper as well, and fair in all. So the next question that we're going to ask you to respond to is, how can governments and tech companies and media and civil society work together to foster public resilience against information manipulation in digital ecosystems? There may be some overlap, but we're going to ask you to answer the questions. Again, it's 3 to 4 minutes. Ms. Lisa Pacosta, to you.
Thank you. As you mentioned, that the governments could have a good control, and then you gave an example of how the real pictures from Ukraine are not allowed in social media because they include dead bodies. If there is anybody left in the world who still believes that Russia is a democratic country, then we have an issue with misinformation anyway, and we had it actually beforehand, also before the social media. So there are governments that are very much interested in to the whole control of the information that is out there, and this is the value also why we have gathered here, to find the ways how to protect our democracies, how to protect our values, how to protect free speech in the era where I do not agree with my own husband always what is allowed to our kids and what is not. We have totally different views sometimes on this fact. So what can governments and non-government organizations do together in the situation where there are some governments who totally want to have a dictatorship control over the citizens, and we have to admit that there is a lot of misuse of non-governmental organizations as well. So at least in Estonia, we see that some of them are fully financed by an aggressive country, Russia, and they do not operate as a non-governmental organization should. So we have a lot of issues around these questions as well. But if we have democratic government, real non-government organization, and good innovative companies, then this complex can do wonderful things together. So I fully believe in humankind in a positive way, that we find a way out. And I really believe what we also have a lot of experience in Estonia, that really the private companies can have very good innovation that is extremely useful for the governments. So let's work together in this way. But as said, there is a lot of questions around this and a lot of things that are not working well.
Thank you so much for your input, Ms. Pacosta. Lisa, we're going to go back to you for this question. If you would like to respond to that, please.
Line the Lisas up, going down the road. Now, I mean, as I already said, at TikTok, we clearly believe in the multi-stakeholder process, and our partnerships are just incredibly important to us. We also believe in the importance and the need for experts and for fact checkers. You know, on our partnerships and our collaborators, several of whom I see in the room, I can't thank you enough. These partnerships with civil society and global institutions are critical to the work that we're doing, and discussions like these at IGF are critical to informing our policies and our products. let me just touch briefly on fact checkers. Through TikTok's global fact-checking program, we work closely with more than 20 IFCN-accredited fact checkers. They are assessing the accuracy of content, and they are supporting informed, responsible moderation decisions. Together, we have more than 20 global fact-checking partners, and they cover more than 60 languages and 100 markets globally. I'm incredibly proud that at a time when other companies are pulling back, we are continuing to lean into this space. We've also started safety and youth councils. So these are our advisory councils made up of independent experts in different parts of the world who know the regions that they are giving us advice about. Sitting in North America, I don't know the right solutions for Estonia. I can't see what's coming around the corner. And so it's critically important that we have these regional safety councils with people who do have that expertise and will bring it to us and share it with us so that we can try to solve problems before they find their ways onto the platform. We currently have 10 of these regional councils, including in Sub-Saharan Africa, Southeast Asia, Europe, Brazil, and we are deeply grateful for the advice of those experts. And finally, we've talked a little bit about election misinformation and disinformation today. And that is an area that we are really working hard on. We have consulted with and launched several different media literacy campaigns ahead of elections specific to the market. We have provided users with trusted information and media literacy resources. For example, in the recent German election, the Electoral Commission actually made a video with information about how to vote and key information for voters, which we then promoted inside the TikTok Election Resource Center, directing people who were searching for information in that market about the election to authoritative information. One new feature I will call out that we've actually recently launched before wrapping, because I see my countdown going. We recently launched Footnotes in April, and this is a new product feature that will give our community more context about content on TikTok. It will draw on the collective knowledge of the community by allowing people to add relevant information to content on our platform. Right now, we are just testing Footnotes in the United States as an intervention, but it's important to note that it is intended to complement, not to replace, our existing content moderation and global community guidelines. Our content moderation and our fact-checking work will continue with Footnotes adding additional context. So look forward to continuing that conversation as well.
Lisa, thank you so much. Taibot, over to you. How would you answer this question? How can governments, tech companies, media, civil society work together, foster public resilience against information manipulation in the digital ecosystems? And you have 4 minutes to answer the question.
So we need to think ahead and also to build a coalition that goes beyond the sole interest of each actor. I don't believe so much in multi-stakeholderism. I mean, every time you put people around the table and they represent, like government should not sit on the same side of a table as tech companies. I mean, governments are here to govern and legislators to make laws, and we should not too much mix all that. The Forum on Information and Democracy that RSF created, for example, is a civil society-led organization feeding legislators and regulators and governments. And I think we should really organize the conversation. That being said, my message to tech companies is clear. Preempt legislation. Do good. Provide due prominence to news media worthy of that name. Do take into account as a signal of authority the Journalism Trust Initiative that Borgbrend mentioned earlier, which is a standard endorsed by about 2,000 media from 130 countries. Governments should not be afraid of regulating and legislating. We need to have policymakers understanding that their responsibility is to build the framework, not to go into the nitty-gritty details of everything happening in the media field, but really building this framework that enable media to flourish. Media themselves need to reflect. They need to reinvent themselves. They are facing the Gen AI move, and they've frankly not done a great job at facing the digital disruption of the early 2010. So I think it's important to try and gather around what is the added value of journalism. And finally, I'd like to put the emphasis on the ecosystem in which the news media operate. I mean, it's more than the media and the tech and government and citizens. There are also like a multiplicity of actors. I'm especially thinking of advertisers who have decided, and it's their right, to relocate most of their advertising, about 80%, towards tech companies. They have totally fled the legacy media field to some extent. And maybe tech companies can provide them with a granularity, a brain time of the people that the news media has never been able to provide. But is it quality? And is it also a democratic responsibility to shift totally towards digital? I think they need to reflect on that.
Thank you so much, Tybert, for that answer. Coming over to you, Mr. Bjorn Berger, what is your response to that question and in the 4 minutes that we have?
Well, thank you. Thank you very much for raising that question because, you know, the issue of coming together and work together is essential in really addressing these type of fundamental challenges. And a lot of this we are discussing also goes really to the core of what are really our fundamental rights as citizens and human beings. And coming together, there's some good news I want to mention here in this sense. And together with the European Union, with the United States, with Australia, New Zealand, with academic researchers, with civil society, with the industry itself, with the actors themselves, the Council of Europe has now agreed and concluded a new international treaty on artificial intelligence and human rights, democracy, and rule of law. The first international treaty of its kind. And why do I say this? Because it brings certain obligations. And one of them is directly related to what we're discussing here, is of course, there's a specific reference to digital literacy and skills, and an obligation for countries and with the assistance of others to promote that. And I also referred earlier to the guidance note that we have issued to all 46 European countries on this. This also goes into concrete action to support fact-finding organizations and ensure their independence and also that they can operate transparent and also have the ability to continue sustainably or over time to do what they are doing. It addresses issues about such as platform governance, and here it's important that you have this human rights aspect part of the design. There's a compliance to that, and also how there's an obligation also how we can go in and limit activities or accounts or moderate or remove them. But again, here we have to be careful also because we have to respect principles of proportionality, but also it should be a last resort. We all are strong believers in freedom of expression, so this is really important. It's about a commitment of how we can give users more empowerment and how we can build resilience. And altogether, it's about how states, platforms, and media come together and ensure reliable and quality information.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. You wanted to wrap up with a sentence? You have 15
just really,
seconds.
I mean, this is not like an app you can load down. I mean, this is a social contract. This is a contract where we come together and we want to address this issue seriously.
Thank you so much. We will have the opportunity, because we have been really good with time. I want to thank the panel that after we get an answer from Monsignor Ruiz, we will have a couple of minutes to give some final remarks. So I ask you to reflect on that and see what are going to be the parting words that you would like to leave our audience with, our local and global audience as well. And to pose the question to you, Monsignor Ruiz, how can governments, tech companies, media, and civil society work together to foster this public resilience against information manipulation in digital ecosystems?
Well, first of all, I think that the government, technology companies, media is one part, but I think that all the educational institutions, academics, other institutions that make up the society need to take part. Institutions that in various ways represent and act on behalf of the community need to take part. In other words, everyone must participate and take interest, not to be just consumers, but be architects of their own life. How to do it? In one hand, with the legislative way, because it's the way to promote for everybody, and also to accompany and control, because also it's necessary to do it. But also mobilizing the education to accompany all the society to walk with the culture. We have an experience in the Holy See that is the Rome to Call Ethics. That is a paper made in February 2020 that is a call to reflect in 3 ways: ethics, education, and right. And we invite the different states and also institutions to sign in order to be together thinking about this culture. The first to sign was Microsoft, IBM, also Italy, no? to participate in this thing. And we had in this paper 6 points to reflect. That was the transparency, inclusion, accountability, impartiality, reliability, and security and privacy. And that means that all together in the same table, we are thinking about how to apply really in the facts, proposing the algorithmics. That means is the ethics inside the algorithms. That is a concrete case how we can do as government and governance change the reality or accompany the change in reality.
Thank you so much, Monsignor Ruiz. We truly appreciate your input and your response to that question. Now, we do have some good time left, so I would like to invite our panel to really give your final messages and just to share what you would like the audience here, the global audience, to take away from this conversation, whether it is an insight, an inspiration, a call to action. What would you most like the audience to take away from this, and what is your final message on this? So we'll start with you again, Liza Lipa-Costa.
Thank you. I will pick up from Mr. Ruiz the expression that everybody should be the architect of one's life. And the question what we are discussing here actually is that, if some architects are used to build stone houses, or Norway has wonderful old wooden houses, but then there will be spread an information on social media that it's a good idea to build hay houses. And they won't stand there. Everybody knows who knows something about architecture, but it becomes a social phenomenon, which is actually bad for many people. This is the issue that we are discussing here. So who would be the good guy to say that this is not a good information, and what would be the administrative or ethics run by the companies to take it down as quickly as possible so that it would not be harmful for many people, maybe only for some. So the question, how we find good solutions that are not dictatorship governments taking down all the freedom of speech, and that is not the regulations that take down the information that we spread about the war in Ukraine. Or maybe there are some new brilliant ideas. Maybe somebody has invented a good way to build hay houses that actually are better than wooden houses or stone houses. So I really believe that we as humankind can globally find good solutions, although we do not know very many good ones at the present moment. But we have to act together, especially the democratic countries have to act together to find these solutions.
Thank you so much, Lisa Lee. And just for our panelists to know that you have 4 minutes to answer this question. Is there anything you want to add before we go over to Taibot?
Yeah, thank you for this possibility.
So you have one more minute.
Trust is the main thing. And I started with education. Estonia is the first country in the world where we start AI-driven education from 1st of September this year. So we will experiment a lot, but what we really believe is that people have to have the knowledge. It's not only the media literacy, but it's also the literacy of how we live in this technological world, so that we would be the best users of technology, also of the AI. And I'm absolutely certain that in this way, that we are open for education, we are open for innovation, we can beat all the bad things from the technology side, we as human beings.
Thank you so much for those parting words. Taibot, what would be your message here, your takeaway, your message that you want to leave, as well as a call to action?
Maybe I think it's important to understand that we need to put ourselves in solutions mode. And it's obvious that if you are an expert in problem, the more complicated the problem is, the happier you are. When you are an expert in solution, you need to find, easy tasks that you can perform in order to succeed. And we obviously are facing a moment in the history of societies where we have to ask ourselves, what is the model of societies we want? Do we want to leave the digital space to private interests? Do we want to leave it open to propaganda? Do we want the public conversation to be destroyed maybe, and the ability to keep civil concord as a reality? Obviously, this is a very political choice in the most political or the most interesting sense of a meaning of the world politics. That's a solution and a question that we have to ask ourselves collectively, because nobody is totally entitled to make that choice. Governments, citizens, not users, must make that decision. And the very end question is, do we want a public debate based on facts? Or is any fact another opinion? We do face today, globally, an offensive which is largely triggered from the United States of America to try and present freedom of expression as being endangered by journalism. This is totally preposterous. You can have both freedom of expression and freedom of the press. And it's actually the meaning of the First Amendment in the US Constitution. So let us not be confused by some of the preposterous statements made currently, which are just an expression of what is the interest of those who want deregulation. Freedom of expression is not survival of the fittest extended to the public conversation. We need to be very clear about that. If we're not, I mean, I'm totally okay with people voting about it, but I don't think it's the interest of the majority to have a total deregulation of the public space that just favors those who can pay, who that speak the loudest. That's not how we have structured societies in the past. So let us be careful about not taking away any rights to anyone, and to preserve freedom of expression and freedom of the press. There is no contradiction between the two, and people that want to make you choose between one or the other are just people that have an interest in just selecting one and not the other. Thank you.
Thank you for your contribution there, Taibot, and for a powerful message as well. So, Lisa, over to you. What would be your takeaways that you want our local and global audience to take away? What would be your call to action or something you'd like to share?
Yeah, I guess I'll close with a reflection on the topic of this panel. As a reminder, we were here to talk about ensuring human rights and resilient societies in the age of technology. From an industry perspective, I think that the only way that the digital space can be fun, entertaining, and useful for all of us is if we carefully consider the balance. And by the balance, I mean the balance between the rights of the people who are using technologies, staying that human-centered focus and design on the rights of the people, balancing that against the safety of the community online, and also building resiliency in the technology itself to new threats. And when I say building resiliency to new threats, I mean those threats that have always existed in society and with new technologies, but that emerge differently in the digital space, and that they can manifest very quickly. We need to continue to do those three things: rights, safety, and resiliency in the design of all of these online systems. And frankly, that's a job for all of us on this stage. It is a job for civil society, it's a job for industry, for governments, for other experts. And we are only going to succeed if we work together in whatever format, whether multi-stakeholder or sitting at your round tables. But if we work together to get the best ideas in one place, and to agree on those ideas and to drive them forward. You know, at TikTok, we are committed to doing our part to help protect our community. We remain committed to fighting harmful misinformation through strong policies and enforcement, and our continued work with more than 20 global fact-checking organizations, again, that cover more than 100 markets in 60 languages globally. And we're also aiming to empower people by connecting them to authoritative information. We label unverified content. We partner on media literacy campaigns that help people think critically about the content that they're engaging with online. And I hope that our team, we have several people here this week, I hope we can connect with all of you while we are here on the ground. If you have not had a chance to drop past our booth, I hope you will do so. We have more information on all of these efforts, and we have a team that would be delighted to connect, to answer your tough questions, and to help build the internet that we all want for tomorrow. That's why I have my 15-year-old daughter here with me today, to be quite candid. She is the North Star that I bring to all of my work. Do I want to make sure that TikTok is a place where both my 15-year-old daughter and my 80-year-old father, who has different digital literacy issues, can both examine and engage with the world around them and do that well? And I thank everybody here for helping us do that.
Lisa, thank you so much for that contribution. We truly appreciate it. And also, Birger, before I go on to you, Bjorn Birger, I just want to mention that Monsignor Ruiz has also expressed a wish to impart some messages in Spanish. So I'm going to, if there is still a need to do that, if you would like to, there is a headset on every chair. I will leave it up to you, but before we get to you, so there is a headset on every chair. If you want to take it up, there are channels. You just find the English channel, 126, and then you have the opportunity to do so if you would like to. So I'm just going to encourage the audience to do that. We have a couple of minutes before we get to Monsignor Ruiz. You can, of course, express it in English for our panel as well. But if there is messages you want to add in Spanish, we give you the opportunity to do so. Everybody has a headset. These are the channels. This is the on button, and you find the English channel. But so just to know, there is the possibility. Now, for the final remarks from you, Mr. Birger, what is your takeaway that you want to leave the audience with? Is there a call to action? Over to you.
Oh, thank you. Let me maybe start with what also the Estonian minister has mentioned here, and this is really essential and very important. There is a cyber war ongoing right now, and we are the subjects, the targets of massive Russian propaganda, misinformation, fake news. And of course, this needs to be combated in every way we can. I mean, this is essential. Secondly, disinformation has become a more growing threat to our democracies. And we referred to it earlier also about it even goes to the core of a democracy, which is the election, and how elections are being manipulated. And also with generative AI, it's making it even faster and cheaper and harder to control. So what we really need is a stronger intergovernmental cooperation and clear enforceable legal standards to confront the threat. And not these type of patchwork fixes or after-the-fact reactions, but something robust, future-proof rules. And these must be grounded in human rights and designed for global relevance. At the same time, I believe we must work across borders, sectors and disciplines to counter disinformation and foster public resilience. Because no single actor can fix this alone, but it's only together we can create a more resilient information space and ultimately, hopefully, a democratic digital space where actually facts matter and rights are respected and voices are heard, not manipulated. So maybe these are my final words.
Thank you so much for that. Monsignor Ruiz.
Final message. Well, we are in the really amazing time, a challenge time for everybody. Well, for this reason, I think that first, we need always seek the place of the human person. That must be always in the center. Second is to promote the person, all person and the whole person. Third, help this deeply cultural process to be a process for everyone, made by everyone. And finally, involve people to be not a user, but a part of the life and the culture. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that. Thank you, Monsignor, for your contributions. Thank you also for all our panelists and your contributions in this very important conversation. We thank you so much. We have really come to the end of the discussion here today, and powerful calls for action and messages that have come from our panelists. We thank you also to you, our audience, who've been here, and also to those of you globally who are watching for your attention as well. And I would like us also now just to say a very big thank you to our panel. If we would give them a warm round of applause, please. Thank you so much. And to our panelists, and just before we have a group photo that we're going to have, I would also like to invite all of our audience, those of you locally and those of you globally, back here tomorrow in this main plenary hall. We're going to be having a number of sessions this entire week by the sessions here in the conference room presented by the host country, Norway, for the IGF 2025, very proud host country. We look forward to seeing you back here tomorrow as well. Conversations like the one we had today, where we take a deep dive into the challenges and the opportunities really facing society in these times today. So we really thank you for your attention, and we look forward to seeing you again. Thank you very much to our panelists. I'm going to ask you to stay on stage for a group photo, so we would really appreciate that. And then also to the rest of you, thank you for your time. We will see you tomorrow.